A.G. Price, typical buy boat, built in 1928.
The boat was built in the 20s, and in the late 50s, 60s, it was converted to a yacht.
She's a Chesapeake buy boat, 72 feet long, 21-foot beam.
The unique thing about the Coastal Queen is she's a classic Chesapeake Bay dead rise construction.
The way that the boat's constructed is completely unique. We've never worked on a boat like her, ever. And we're learning as we go a little bit.
This boat has a lot of character. It's essential that we don't change the character of the boat. That's what makes her stand out in the harbor.
Well, she's starting to look like a boat again. Its backbone is whole again.
People of today have no idea of what a buy boat is.
To my knowledge, Mob Jack and the Delvin K are the only remaining working buy boats.
They were the workhorse of the waterfront. They used them for everything.
The purpose of this restoration is to return the boat to full service and full commission.
Think about the idea that if it works, don't mess with it. But also, what's the future of the boat look like? And we've got to sort of balance those things and not screw up the character of the boat. Right now we're at the point where there's a lot of things finally coming together after, many months of work. The final bits of rot around rub rails and around the stern and the brick house area, they're all being put back together. The amount of rot always sort of surprised us in this boat, so there's some last little sections that we discovered in the end as we began the paint job.
Tell us what you're doing there, Chet. Are you setting that proper?
I'm trying to set it so that the vibration of the extra long bit doesn't make my fence come apart. I've been working on the back of the boat, the transom of the boat. The way the transom is designed, it's basically blocks of wood that are stacked on top of each other and drifted through almost like a brick wall. So Matt was back there doing a superficial repair, and as he did the superficial repair, he found that there was an enormous amount of rot in the upper mid-section of the transom. I started with the router. I started with the little jig, and the rot was so extensive that I just went to town with a big demo chisel and a hammer. And it was entirely rotted back there. We pulled all the bad wood out, and we only had inch and a quarter stuff to work with. So I've just been, doing like they did in the original design, just stacking inch and a quarter pieces into the old rot pocket. The transom's about 6 inches thick, so getting everything to fit. And when you get toward the end, you have to make little wedges to get everything to fit nice together and all that. On the inside of the lazarette, we're going to be doing a couple of those live oak knees that you probably saw when we were doing the deck beams. They're all holding up the deck beams, keyed into the side of the hull and the stringer and the deck beam. We'll probably do a couple of those in the back there at the lazarette. Live oak is indestructible. It's so dense that it sinks if you put it in water. The grain is very squirrely back and forth like this. It's hell on tools, but when you get it looking nice, it's, shines up really pretty, and it's brick house.
Yeah. And where does it come from? Because you're always good about these.
Live oak is a southern wood, probably North Carolina and south. There's a lot in Louisiana, but you can't cut it anymore. You have to wait for a hurricane to knock something down. We got a lot from Hurricane Katrina, knocked a lot down. It's protected, yeah, those large, you see them if you go down south. They're those big trees that, they got the big root system that comes up, and then they go out like this. They usually have all the fuzzy stuff hanging from it. Those are big live oak trees, and they're nearly indestructible.
Dennis and his crew have just completed the lower deck now, on what you'd call the main deck all of the tongue and groove boards that are all wrapping around the main part of the house. So all of that got sprayed, and now they moved down below deck so they can start on the hull ceiling. So we can then get that in primer, and then we could install our final installation on the steel floors.
So we're taping off the bottom planking, and we'll prime all of this and all these blockings and all these end frames. From this bulkhead aft in the engine room area, we're gonna paint. That way things can start being hung on walls, tanks can be put in, and everything's painted behind them.
Patrick and Judd have been making beds for the fuel tanks and the generators so that they don't sit crooked in the boat, they sit flat and level when the boat's in the water on the water line.
What is unique about these restorations is that things like water tanks and fuel tanks are all custom. They're conforming to, odd hull shapes, and we're trying to maximize the amount of fuel, amount of water, and amount of waste that we can carry on board. Every extra gallon means you can stay out longer. And so as a result, there's not just dimensions that need to be taken, there's actual templates of the space that has to be built. And then those get brought to the fabricator, and they work off of these three-dimensional templates and not just a bunch of dimensions.
We've been working back in the lazarette a bit on our autopilot. So the boat is all going to be traditional cable steered, but we're going to have a hydraulic pump on the engine, a little reservoir, and we'll have a twin piston, 2 cylinders there that go to a little tiller arm in the lazarette to run our autopilot.
I made a model of the autopilot steering gear. These would be the hydraulics. And the idea was we could put it in different places around the boat. This only weighs about 6 pounds versus 200. We wanted to understand how the physics work as you twist on the rudder shaft. It pulls the whole unit up and down on a post here. So this is the actual autopilot steering unit. See, we've got some pretty serious rams, and the idea is they push and pull and therefore don't twist the shaft, so we don't have the actual shaft in at the moment. It's still off the boat. This is a mock-up.
This is the Cummins for the Coastal Queen, and we've purchased an adapter here that goes on the back of the gear, where we're going to have a small pump that's going to run the autopilot, the pistons that are in the back there. We're trying to figure out if we have enough clearance to run this pump and still have our shaft line come out here without any interference. So it's just cool technology that, with this 3D printing stuff now that we're able to use as a benefit to, before we have to buy something, mount it to figure out that it doesn't fit. Todd did some research here and picked out a 24-volt alternator. So we're gonna make up a bracket, and we're gonna end up mounting it over on this side. And there's an auxiliary shivs that's in the front there, and that will, this will power the house bank, which is all 24 volt, which will be 4 8D batteries that'll give the power, and that'll keep our inverters, and which is in turn gonna get our refrigeration, ice machines and stuff like that, keep it online when you're not running a generator. With Coastal Queen, we're just trying our best to lay it out where maybe they don't have to run a generator all the time. So if they're underway in the intercoastal and it's a nice day and they're not cooking and they don't need air conditioning, they can shut down the generators and just run on the main, and that larger alternator that I was just showing you would power the house bank, and then again, then there's inverters that are gonna take over from there and keep your cell phone charging, keep the ice machine working, and the refrigerator and chest freezer and stuff like that online. So with our steel floors in the engine room and the gyro area, and then forward of that gyro area, all those have been fit, and Corey has been in there cutting and making these little corner clips that attach that stainless steel floor to the stringer. and the next stringer, and then there's a gusset where it meets the top sides there, and that lands on a frame that's behind that. So when we lag into that, again, we're just trying, so all the twisting that's happening with the Seakeeper that we're put in the boat, that all of that twisting motion helps to, you know, this is all stabilizing it from the keelson out to the chine.
So when we got the steel pieces back from the machine shop, there was a lot of trimming and retrimming, making it just a perfect puzzle piece fit. Hey, I did a lot of cutting on a cutoff wheel, just a handheld one, and then we have a really cool metal chop saw. You could just like run an angle iron in and make 30 of them fairly quickly. Here we are in the Queen. We've got all the stainless steel floors clamped up. Spent the last 3 or 4 weeks trimming and fitting and leveling and clamping and marking. We got all the steel floors in the boat, in place, leveled, parallel, and measured out and straight where we wanted to be, marked it all. All that stuff needed to get clamped and fit and tweaked right and hammered right into the spot that it's going to live in.
And now we've got a fabricator that we've used for years and years. One of his guys came in and they were tack welding all the little angles to the floors now. So that 2x2 angle that goes on the keelson, that got tacked in place. Our gussets got TIG welded, tacked in place. Then we took them out of the boat and they went to his shop where they then MIG welded them all up solid, continuous weld, no stitch welding, solid welding on all that. And now they're back at our shop. And that's where we're pacifying the welds with some acid and this little electrical device that charges it and helps purifies that.
What we're doing here is we're prepping the stainless steel floors to be pacified. All of it got tack welded in the boat, got taken out to the welders, got welded every single of these brackets here, but there's some impurities in the weld. So what we have with this crazy acid and this crazy machine, we prep the weld to remove all those impurities to make it last longer.
Pacifying the welds. It's an acid that runs some current through this wand and it cleans the welds up so they don't end up rusting. It cleans that material up so it doesn't break down and show rust streaks on it later on. I think that's what I want to say. I'm not sure if I said that perfectly.
What is this contraption called something?
I don't even know. This is new. This is new. This is new to me. But I'm not sure, like, to get too in depth in it because I don't. It's all magic. I don't know what it does.
The Coastal Queen Restoration Series is filmed before a live studio audience.
We've got a really busy spring ahead of us here, and we've got 3 different projects that we're putting engines in, the Queen being one of them. So it's a lot going on here. So I got nothing else to say besides that.